Hi there, data scamps and data champs. This is Richie. So, in this session, we're going to learn how to begin using the Alteryx Cloud platform. And for those of you who don't know, Alteryx is a low-code data analytics platform. So, naturally, today we're going to be doing some data analysis. We're going to start right from scratch, so no Alteryx experience is required. However, if you've not used it before, in order to follow along, you're going to have to sign up. So we're going to go through that at the start, and there'll be a join link in the chat. Now, our guest is Joshua Burkow. He's the Chief Evangelist at Alteryx. And this is the one time where I feel like I've gone too subtle with my shirt. So yeah, Josh, you're doing well there with the fashion. Anyway, so Joshua's job is teaching people how and why to use Alteryx. So this is his day job, and I think that makes him exactly the right person for this session. Before Alteryx, Josh was a Global Solutions Architect Director at PwC. He also led the Global Supply Chain Data Team at Nike and was a Sergeant in the US Marines. And on top of this, he is the author of Alteryx Designer, the Definitive Guide. So with that, please take it away, Joshua.
Thank you so much, Richie. I appreciate it. So welcome, everybody. I'm glad to be here. I hope we can have a little bit of fun today. I'm going to jump right into it I have a few slides for you, and then we're going to get into actually building a workflow. So pay attention because there's some data involved and some URL links that you need to grab right away so we can make this a productive session for everybody. Again, my name is Joshua Burkow, Chief Evangelist at Alteryx. I sit in the product org, and I spend a lot of time trying to help others understand the value and the fun part of using Alteryx. I think it's really fun. So today we're going to be getting started with data analysis in Designer Cloud. We are going to take a pretty simple use case that is just great for being able to showcase the power of Designer Cloud in the Alteryx AI platform. We have a data set that is a list of Netflix movie titles and their ratings. We're going to talk through that use case in just a second. But our primary goal is really to get familiar with Alteryx Designer Cloud. I want you to see it. I want you to play with it a little bit if you can, and understand how fun and easy it is. We're going to build a simple workflow to do basic analysis. Don't think we're going to solve some building LLMs or anything complex or anything. This is going to be something that I know even my teenager at home could follow along. And the point is to get a lot of the complexity out of the way so you can see the value of the platform. If you're curious about what it can do beyond that, whether it gets into AI or advanced analytics or building data science models, more than happy to answer those questions afterwards, which it can do all of those things. The why here is important. One of the most important things for me as a chief evangelist at Alteryx is that analytics is both super profound and impactful and drives a lot of companies profits and revenue and lowers cost, and all these things are great and important, but I also want it to be fun and exciting. And this is the part that I enjoy the most. And so hopefully today is both fun and exciting and opens up some doors and some ideas for you to know how to use Alteryx. Now, this is one of those important moments you got to pay attention. If you don't have Alteryx Cloud today, or you've access it through your company, please sign up for this trial. You just need to go to alteryx.com and hit that start free trial. There's a little form there you have to fill out. It's pretty quick. Hopefully I can talk long enough to buy you time to do that, but do that now and sign up for the free trial. When you sign up for that free trial and you get all your information put in there, you're going to go to that next screen. Just hang out there. I'll catch up to you in just a second. You're going to be in the same place that I'm headed to. All right. So important. This is today's data. It's a relatively simple data set, but that top link there, the bit.ly link, is all the Netflix titles. Go out, capture that QR code will get you to the same place. Capture today's data. While you're all doing that, I'm going to talk through the the use case and give you a little bit of the detail behind what we're going to go after today and what problem we're going to solve. So you are today, unless you actually are a Netflix analyst, you are going to imagine you are a Netflix analyst. And you're going to help address a concern with the ratings of certain Netflix titles for the youth. The company has decided to combine all their PG rated content into a special category. And so we need to make sure that it's getting served to the right audience. And so to do this, the team is going to determine how many PG rated titles, parental guidance titles, are present to estimate the effort associated with being able to launch this new feature. So what we're going to do really at a high level is we're going to do some counts of some values in the data set that is going to provide our insights to the leaders to say, hey, this is what we're looking at. This is going to provide you the information that you'll need to understand if going after this new feature is going to be a hard task, an easy task. Is it going to be sufficient? And so from the provided data, we're going to determine how many PG titles were released after the year 2013. I provided the data set links, and I think we can just jump right into it if you are good. I'm going to, let me get into the right URL. Here we go. All right, we're in the cloud portal. I'm going to go full screen on this. Again, this is that same link, the us1.alteryxcloud.com. Once you come into it, you will land at this page. And I want to stop and highlight a few things here. The first thing is Designer Cloud, what we're going to use today, is one of many applications. As you see here, we have Auto Insights, Location Intelligence, Auto Insights, which is really about auto-analyzing our data and building visualizations and dashboards that help users so they don't have to do that. We have Location Intelligence, which drives interactive and analyzes geospatial data. We have the ability to create machine learning models. We have the ability to create applications that sit on top of the data that we're going to work on today. We have reporting, which allows us to build both standard reports and visualizations on the data. But the most important, I would say the most powerful, is plans. And plans allows us to orchestrate all this work. So we create 10 workflows and they all have to be chained together. They have to be sequenced. And we want to make sure that we have triggers and things like alerts in there. We can do that as well. We have the ability, this is the Alteryx Analytics platform. We have the ability here to see all the different workflows we have, the different connections to our data that we have. All of these pieces, we have all the different data we can access. We've got put in. We can measure and see our schedules. So if we have any schedules here that we want to look at, we can see how often those are, if they're failing, stuff like that. And then every job that we run, we have visibility as well. So when I'm running a workflow, we can see that as well. So lots of robust capabilities. We have APIs, we have SDKs available that you can tap into the cloud as well. We can even connect to data that's on the cloud or anywhere else in any other database. This is one of the things that we started as an on-prem company, and Alteryx has been very good about being able to connect to whatever data set you can imagine. We also have the ability to push data to these certain data sets like Snowflake and Databricks. So if you really want to think about how to scale these jobs and run, hundreds of millions of records up to billions of records or more, you could do that using these state-of-the-art applications. So for today, I think I've bought you all enough time to get in, get your trial. Hopefully you have your data set. We're going to jump right into it now. And we're going to launch Designer Cloud, the designer experience. And designer experience, for those of you who don't know, comes from our on-prem offering that we've had and we still have, and will continue to have, to be clear. It is our drag and drop user interface that you're going to see shortly here. One of the other things is we made an acquisition, Trifacta. We also brought in a lot of the features and functionalities that this application provided us as well. And so we were really gung-ho about the drag and drop and simplification of the user interface, but we're adding more and more features and functions that make life easier for you as we go through it. All right. So right now we are in Designer Cloud, just for sake of direction. Now, when you're new to Designer Cloud, you can quickly go into example workflows, open tool examples, see how things are built, kind of get oriented to it. For today's webinar, we're going to run through and build a workflow from scratch.
Before we get too deep into the content, there are a couple of questions about getting started. Yeah. So the first one comes from Mar. So Mar's saying, what happens if you are looking for work, you don't have a work email address? Is there a way to sign up? I suspect it's like, I don't know whether Gmail's blocked or anything like that.
Yeah, it should be able to sign up just fine. I don't know if it's, to be honest, I don't know if it would block that.
Okay.
It shouldn't block it.
All right. Try whatever email address you have, and let us know whether it works or not. And there was one more question just coming from Aaron. So Aaron said you got an error about saying you're not authenticated to access this content. Do you have a reason for that? Otherwise, how do you go about relaunching?
Sorry, I didn't understand the question. It's not authenticated?
Yeah. Might be just in case you clear your browser cookies or something like that, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, it should, it might be, not entirely sure, like why that would not work, but you should be able to go out to that link and grab it. If it could happen, I'd be surprised, but it could happen that you need to sign up, log into the community, which if you want, I can jump over to that real quick and talk to that for a moment if it helps users.
Yeah, okay, that might be helpful if you just quickly go through.
Yeah, it'll take just all but a second here. Let me find my mouse here. So if you have to, you can go to Alteryx. You know, if you're going to Alteryx.com and you click on this free trial, I already can tell you, for me, it's going to automatically push me through. But there is this login, and this login is driven off of our community. You notice that it pushes me right through, so I don't have a way to show you that. But if you go to community, and you just up here, you'll see a login, and you can either log in there or create a quick login. And we'd love to have you on the community as well, but that might be if you are facing the non-authenticated, it might be because of that. Notice mine, being an internal employee, just pushes me right through. Hopefully that's helpful, useful for you, and we'll go from there. All right, I'm gonna, Richie, if there's any other questions, let me know. If not, I'll get going on this, if that's okay.
Yeah, let's go.
Cool. All right. So one of the things I do just when I first started workflow, this is call it a quirk with me, but I always like to name my workflow, so I can click in here and just say Netflix analysis. You could do Netflix movie titles. You could do whatever you want, but it's nice to have a nice clean title, start off clean and organized. Now, I have this sort of practice that I've been teaching Alteryx for better part of 12 years, 13 years. And there's really 3 to 4 things that if you master those 3 to 4 things, you're going to be up to speed with Designer really, really quickly. Designer is meant to purposefully be easy, but as you can get going and as you learn Alteryx, you're going to find out very quickly that it can do some pretty robust and quite amazing feats of both data engineering, analysis, building machine learning models, and this sort. The idea here is that we're trying to lower the barrier for you all so that you don't need to have a PhD or be as smart as Richie, for example, to be able to use this. What you want to start with, there's really three main things, and I'm going to show you as they are. I'm going to talk through them, but I want you to put a special note aside, or make a mental note, however you need to remember it. These three things will repeat themselves throughout all of your workflow building, even after 10, 15 years of building workflows. They will still matter. The first one is the tool palettes. Now, the way Alteryx does this is we have not only color-coded, but shape-coded tools. So you see that like the in and out tools, these are a set of tools that allow us to bring data into the workflow in Alteryx. And they're all this sort of green color and under this tab, right? And so these are all, you'll always know when you have a workflow and you have these green tools like this one that's sitting in there, they're all part of that same tool palette, right? It's an easy way for you to recognize what's in your workflow. All blue preparation is all these blue tools. Join tools we have are these purple squares. We got parse tools, transform tools, developer tools. And in almost 2 weeks, we have our conference, which I'll talk about towards the end, where we'll actually be releasing even more tools. And frankly, all the prep and blend tools that you would need to be able to do data analysis in the cloud. So we're going to get started here. Remember, the first thing is tools and tool palettes, right? So I'm going to grab a tool from the tool palette. Sorry, wrong one. I'm going to grab the input data tool, and I'm going to grab it and drag it and drop it onto what we call the canvas. Now, the canvas is the second thing. Remember, we work and we build our artwork, as we affectionately call it, our workflow on the canvas, right? So tool palette, right? Think of painting and tool palette. We drag it onto the canvas. Third thing is we need to configure the tool. So this applies to any tool that we're dragging onto the canvas. We bring the tool onto the canvas and then we configure it. Here, we want to be able to connect to data. Now, in Designer Cloud, it's slightly different than in the on-prem version that some of you might be used to, but at the end of the game, it still connects to data and securely and efficiently and effectively. Now, you have a couple ways to do this. You can go out and grab the file. For example, if you have a CSV file, which is in our case is a CSV file, or if you have an Excel file or text file or some sort like that, you can go out and grab it, bring it in. But you could also connect to data as well, where you go out and connect to a database, or you connect to, some data source that's been connected and set up by the admins, and that's a available option. So what you're going to do is you all are going to have an upload file. When you click upload, you're going to go towards wherever your file is. You're going to select your file, hit open, and it's going to bring this file in. Now, there's a lot of stuff that's happening behind the scenes that you don't see that is making your life easier. Alteryx Designer Cloud is looking at the file and analyzing it and figuring out what it's all about. It's figuring out if it's a comma delimited, if it's an Excel file, if it's got so different types of delimiters in it. Maybe it has tab delimiters or semicolons. In this case, it's found out that it's got comma delimited. Looks like the encoding is set. We could change that if we wanted to. The header options, we have the ability to change whether the header option is there or not. Maybe this is data that really has no header on it. A lot of machine learning models are like this. They don't really have a header of sorts. It's just pure raw data. Okay, so in this case, we're going to use the first row as the dictator for the header. And then new line characters, if we need to use that, those are in there automatically. Now, When we upload a file, we don't have to just kind of blindly accept it and say, oh yeah, let's go. We can actually preview it where it's going to go out, open that file, pull some data and look at it and give us a little confidence boost, let's say, that we've got a hold of the right data that we're looking at. And I can tell you, just because I'm running the webinar and I've looked at this data, this looks like the right data. So I'm happy. I'm going to hit close here and I'm going to hit create data set. Now, that'll take a second to get created, and it will create that data set by bringing in that file and saving it into the data repository that I showed you before. Okay. Now, here's where it gets really good, and one of the things I've always liked about Alteryx, both on-prem and in the cloud, is we always have this ability. I hit this little collapse arrow system. I could also just drag and drop this up if I don't want it to cover my entire screen. But this is what we call the IRG, Interactive Results Grid. This allows us to look at data that we have coming in. Now, what's even better is as we build this workflow out, it doesn't matter if we have 5 tools, 500 tools, you'll always be able to see where the data is at that given point in time. Because part of data analysis is we're manipulating the data in window and being able to add columns, subtract columns, do math, all that. We have changes to our data. We want to see those changes. We want to make sure that they're getting put in place the right way, that we didn't make a mistake. Okay, so we have this interactive results grid. It's always there. I can go through it and look at it. Now, depending on the size of the data, most of the time, the vast majority of use cases are going to use relatively what we call small data sets. This one's only 6,000 rows and 15 columns. So Alteryx is going to be pulling all that data in to the window here for us. Obviously, if you have a billion records, that's going to be really hard to do it. So what we do is we use a sampling methodology to go out, pick a sample of that we think is the best representation mathematically of your data so that you can work off of that, right? And you can constantly test that. And you always have ability to capture a new sample if you don't feel like that one's representing what you need. Cool. So you've already accomplished one major feat in Alteryx Designer. You might not feel like it, but you have, because you've come into Alteryx Designer Cloud. You've taken a tool from the tool palette. Remember, that's step 1. You've dragged it onto the canvas. That's step 2. You've configured it. That's step 3. And step 4 is you reviewed it in the IRG. Those 4 steps happen over and over and over again. You now can build workflows in Designer. So what we're going to do here is we're going to actually figure out what is the next tool that we need to use to solve this problem. Remember, we're doing this use case where we have all these Netflix titles and we have various amounts of data in here, and we need to calculate how many have the PG rating, right? And so we're looking at this data set. Part of the thing that we do as good analysts is just get really familiar with our data. We look at it, we figure out, okay, these are all the columns, here's all the values. Okay, that's good information. What I'm also looking at immediately that Designer Cloud does for you is that it not only assigns the most likely data type to it based on a scan of that data, right? So it can see that this ABC is a string, meaning there are letters and numbers in this all the way down. So it is set the data type for this as a string. But we can see later on, if we come down here to release year, that all looks like numbers and we have a number there, right? So this is a set as an integer data type, right? And if we had other data types in here, we could look and see, trying to see if I don't have, it looks like I just have numbers and data types. But what I want to show you is if we do have floats. Yeah, so these you see one kind of dot two. They're kind of easy to miss, I guess. Floats are point numbers, right? So we can do decimals in there. We have booleans where we can do kind of a 0, 1. We can do dates and date times, and it's really important that you get for those new to data analysis. It's really critical you focus on getting your data types correct, because it's going to dictate what you can actually do to the data, right? So you can't add two strings together and expect some mathematical number to come out of it. Same for Boolean. You're going to get a true or false, right, or a 0 or 1. Right? Cool. All right. The next thing. So we've looked at this data. Well, I do have a question for you. We have to figure out what data should we really be keeping, and what data do we not really need, and what's going to be important to answering our question about the ratings. And if any of you have kind of looked through the data, you actually probably see that this age certification is the one that we need. That looks like that has a ratings. It's not fully populated, but it's got all the ones that we want. So we definitely want to keep that. But we also remember in the problem is they said that we wanted to determine how many PG titles were released after the year 2013. So this is where we really wanted to look at this and say, oh, okay, here's the release year. We want this one too, because this contains the actual years involved. Okay. So those are two that really are important to understand. But if we look at maybe runtime or production country or seasons, I don't really think that's important. So let's just do a simple task, which is one that all of us will do at one point in our journey in data analysis. Is let's just get rid of data that doesn't really matter to us. So we're going to grab and drag and drop the select tool. Now the select tool allows us to do actually a handful of cool things. It allows us to deselect columns. So if you're used to SQL, if you're coming from the SQL world, this is the equivalent of naming your values that you want to bring in. So when you go to select star, for example, you're doing exactly this. You're selecting all the fields. But if you want to select certain fields, we have the ability, we've kind of turned that functionality into a checkbox. And so I can get rid of all of them right away. I could even just say, hey, I want to keep the ID because that's unique. That tells me that exact row and that exact piece. I probably want the title because we want to calculate those. We definitely want that release year. We talked about that. We definitely want the age certification. That gives us the actual rating. What I want you to see is as you're making these changes, it's all showing up in the results grid. You're actually seeing your data being manipulated in real time by your field. And maybe, for example, I click runtime and I'm like, oh, wait, I didn't want that. I just saw it pop up. Just uncheck it. Like it's that sort of thing. It's not something that you're stuck with. It's very, very flexible and able to move through. So when you're, fun fact, when you're working with a lot of data, this is the number one thing that you should do from the very beginning is get down to the data set that you actually need, not bring everything. Don't select star everything because it's going to slow you down. It's going to make your life a lot harder because you have to wait 10 minutes, 15 minutes every time something runs. What we're trying to do is build workflows fast and nimble. All right. So we have the release here. We have age certification. We've actually done the second step. We drag the select tool onto the canvas. We put it, went to that was step 2. We went to 3. We did the configuration. We went to step 4, reviewed our data. Everything looks good. Now we just repeat the task. So from here, we're actually going to do, I think we can just get straight into the filter. Yeah, let's do that. So we now have release year and age certification. Let's just get this get the filter in there. We're going to drag and drop from the tool palette onto the canvas. We're going to bring the filter tool in here, and we're going to select a column that we want to filter. Now, in the filter tool, I'm going to walk through it, and then I'm going to explain that we actually have two different options we can pursue. So what we said was we want the release year to be greater than or equal to 2013. Okay, so I'll give you a chance to type that in. Once you type it in, notice that release year automatically shows up, gets filtered out, 23 to 2014. Okay. Now, what also happened is you saw, like I said, we have two different options here. We have basic filters. This is your basic kind of operator sort of math, right? This is greater than this. This is equal to this. This is not null, that sort of thing. Very basic, single thread. However, advanced filters can get highly complicated. We can join as many of these sort of mathematical formulas together using the operands and or. So if we wanted to, and we came in here, we wanted to type something that's like, I don't know, I'm just making something up here. We can start typing and say, and this and title, include something, right? I'm just making this up, but we have this ability to do really, really robust sort of formulas. What I would say, though, as a best practice is don't get in the habit of making it so unreadable that a general user can't come in here and figure out pretty quickly what you're trying to do. It's okay to have multiple formula tools that keep your workflow easy to read and easy to work with. It's okay. You can do that. You're not going to affect performance. You're not going to change the outcome in any way. So keep it easy. You have access to all the variables here, so we can see all the different columns there. You can also look and see that we have a ton of formulas and functions available to you that are coming out of the box, right? So you can kind of go through here and figure out what you need to look at. You can test if things are null or empty. You can count things. You can look for certain words and strings. There's a lot of functionality in here, much like you would find in other tools. All right, so we've actually done the third one. We took the filter tool from the tool canvas. We dropped it on the canvas. We did the configuration, which is 3, and we reviewed the results in the IRG. We've literally been doing the same thing over and over since we started, right? This is where I really want to cement this in for you, that it doesn't have to be much more complicated than this. All right, so we've got the year greater than 2013. Now we're going to, I think we can just go straight to summarize tool. Yeah. So we have, what I want you to see here is we have all these tool palettes, right? And you can, for the sake of organization or anything like that, you can go through and collapse them if you want. You don't have to. You can kind of easily scroll through them. I tend to, if I'm working in a specific tool set, keep them all nice and neat. But we're going to grab this summarize tool and we're going to drag and drop it. Now, here's something new that came up. Notice, so I'm holding down my finger on my mouse. I'm on a Mac, but I'm dragging this around with my other finger. But no, I want you to notice that if I drop it out here, there's not going to be any connection. So you're going to have troubles when it comes to for this tool to see the work. You always have to have these sort of connections coming out of each of the tools, right? And we refer to these things as anchors, right? So there's a true anchor and a false anchor here. I have the ability, once I drag and drop and bring that tool closer, you'll see that those little dots appear, trying to give you a hint that it's going to connect to that anchor. So just be paying attention when you're doing this and make sure you get it attached to the right anchor. I'm attaching to the true anchor because I want all the results that are coming out of the true anchor. What that means is this evaluation in the formula is going to evaluate to either true or false. Is because I'm saying release year is greater than or equal to 2013. That can be true, and it could be 2013, which is equal, 2014 is greater, maybe a 2015 or something in there. Okay. If it's not true, then all of those records actually come out of the false. Now, here's one of the cool things about Alteryx. You never lose data. You never, when you're in a select statement, you lose data because as soon as you select something, you're saying, hey, I don't want to see the other thing. That other thing goes away. You don't have visibility to it. So if you wanted that data, you don't see it. Here, you will always see all your data. So here, I'm filtering to anything that's greater than or equal to 2013. If that's false, then all that other data comes through. I could build a workflow that goes off and does something to that data just fine, no problem, right? And that part's totally okay. I don't need to for this example because we're keeping it simple. We're looking through this, but just know that it's all there for you if you need it. Okay, so let's jump back to the summarize tool. So the summarize tool, I'm actually going to do something to give myself some real estate. I'm going to pop this guy down. Now, the summarize tool is one of the more powerful tools in Alteryx because it can do a ton of different things. So don't shortchange it. Don't think that it just does some aggregation. It can do it 15 ways till Sunday. So the first thing is you're going to look at what you need to do and add an action. Everything is driven around an action to a field or set of fields, right? So for this one, we're going to actually group by this age certification. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to shrink our data set to only deal with the values that we want, which are those ratings. We don't need a row by row calculation from including all the titles. From this point on, we want the age certification grouped by. So what I can do here is I can hit this little plus sign. I can do it up here as well with that action, but here I'm going to hit that plus sign because I know it's pertaining to this age certification, and I'm going to do group by. Now, what you see happen is it kind of looks a little cut off. So let's just pull out our window like we want to so we can read everything. So we're taking this column age certification and we're grouping it by the values. So when we see this, if we look at just the outcome here, remember we're everything that you do as you're building it, you don't need to hit run, you don't need to run the workflow. What you see though is that now we have essentially a unique instance of all the possibilities we have in that data set. That's what we've grouped by. We've grouped by all that. But we want some of the other data to come in too. So we're actually going to add another one where we're going to add a count. This count is going to count how many of those titles that fall within those individual groups. So as soon as we hit it, you're going to notice that the counts come up, and we can rename this. This is named as count. We could put it, just be really sneaky here. Nothing overwhelming, but we could do title count, for example, because now, when we look at this data, we're like, okay, we know that's the title count, or we could do something like num of titles, if you like, whatever makes you helps you the most. Now, notice for each age certification, we've got a count. This is a count of the number of titles, the number of movies that pertain to that age certification. So now I want you to tie back to that use case and understand that the question was, hey, we really want to put all the PGs in a new category. What does that look like? Right? So now we could, if we wanted to, we could just come down here and see that, hey, out of the 25, the total was 6,000 plus records. Out of those, we've got 184 for PG. What we could do too, just to make this real, we can play here a little bit. We could sort largest to smallest. Notice what I just did? I could actually use the IRG to do further analysis. We can drag and drop from here because we know what we need to do, like a summarize or something like that. But if I just need to do a simple sort because I want to see it clearly where PG is in, pertains to all the others, all I did is a simple sort. I just hit this, the three dots here, and I can do some of the basic analysis. I can split columns, clean up data, sort, filter, even change data type if we wanted to, right? All of these things are going to result in automatically putting a tool like the sort tool onto the canvas and configuring it for you. So that's actually might be faster just to build from the IRG, depending on how you like to do it. Okay. So again, we see that there's 184 titles that are assigned to PG, the rating, right? Now, once we're done, just to close this all out, we say, hey, this is the number that we want. We're actually going to send this data set out, and that's where we can actually just configure quickly an output data tool, drag and drop that onto the canvas. Just like we did with the input, we can say, hey, we want to connect it. We want to send it to AWS. We want to send it to a database. We want to send it to Snowflake. We could do all those things. We could even output it to a data set that's already created. Like we want to maybe overwrite the Netflix file if we wanted to. The download file is, we're going to put Netflix title results. And I'm just going to put that, I can do CSV, but I don't need to because I can do file format here and put that. Oops, I always do that. I'm going to do this. Okay. And CSV, and then delimited. I could change that if I wanted to. I'm not going to. And I can set some pieces here. So when I hit save, that's going to, it didn't do anything yet. It's going to set it up and configure it. If I want to output this data, then I will just hit run because it's going to take, and it's going to run this workflow for the entire data set. Okay. So that's the end-to-end workflow that is taking all the way from a full list of titles with a bunch of other data, including the year and the age certification. We cleaned that data up to only what we need to work with. We created a filter that filtered it to everything greater than or equal to 2013. We did a summarize where we basically grouped by the age certification, and we counted the number of titles. We did the sort of the titles so we could just see where our PG ratings is, and then we output that data to a file. So hopefully that is useful. I want to cover just a couple last things so that you have them as far as additional resources, and then I will turn it over for any questions or anything that the team, DataCamp team, might have for us. So the first one that I really want to make sure that you will all have at your fingertips, I hinted at before, was the community. The community is the greatest resource that you have at your fingertips. You can do all kinds of things. Like you can obviously participate in discussions. This is everything from putting out a question to asking, hey, how does something work? That sort of thing. We've got 500,000 plus users. So it is very likely that you're going to get an answer within a minute, couple minutes. So you can do discussions. You can put your ideas down. You can learn. This is the big one. So the Academy is the place that you go to learn more about Alteryx. A lot of the lessons and sort of videos and vignettes are all there. You could even go out and get certified in Alteryx. We have everything from very, very beginner to the ultimate expert, which is really, really difficult. and you can learn more about different tools and understand tool mastery, that sort of thing. You can get support. You can come to user groups, hang out with me and my friends, and have a good time and learn more about Alteryx. And you can kind of grow your career using Alteryx. So hopefully this is all helpful for you. The one thing that I would say that I would really highlight for you is in just a week. I'm going to actually go back to the main website for it. Is in a week we have Alteryx Inspire in Las Vegas. This is May 13th to the 16th. It is our big, crazy, wild, fun educational conference that we have every year. It's quite a show. We go out of our way to host you and hope that you can come out and hang out with us and enjoy. So with that, I will hopefully turn it over and answer any questions or anything like that might you might have.
All right, super. Thank you, Joshua. That was really nice. And I can see how if I was collaborating with someone who wasn't a coder on some data analysis, that'd be really useful because no more trying to explain Python code to people. So that's going to be very cool. All right, we'll go to audience questions in a moment. So for everyone in the audience, if you do have a question for Joshua, please do write them in the chat. Before we get to that, I've got a couple of questions. So first of all, because it seemed like there were a lot of different tools available there. If I'm not quite sure which tool I want, is there a way to search for like which one I need?
Yeah. There's there's a couple of places, and this is only going to get better. There's some top secret stuff happening that I'm going to share at Inspire. So you almost have to come to Inspire to see that. But I will tell you that spending time, so doing the initial walkthrough of Alteryx and learning, you're going to learn what tools do what. This is sort of the game with Alteryx is there are so many tools, but there are plenty of resources available to you, both on the community, amongst users, user groups, that will help you to understand what new tools. What I would say is if you go through the initial trainings that we have on the page, you'll learn the vast majority of the tools and how they're configured and how they work via those. And then I would probably say stay tuned with DataCamp. We'll probably have some more for you coming too.
Absolutely, yes. So if you click on the resources linked in the chat, then you can see the DataCamp Alteryx Fundamental Skill Trek, so a series of courses that take you through the basics.
Absolutely.
So one of the questions I had is, it seems like it's quite a common problem to have to do maybe like a weekly or monthly report. So with that example, like if I was doing that Netflix analysis and the data updated each week, but everything else in the analysis stayed the same, is there a way to do that? Just swap out the data set and have all
Absolutely.
the rest?
So there's two components to that. The first one is everything that we built today is repeatable. You don't have to go back and do that same thing like you would in, say, Excel or other tools where you kind of have to go read through those steps. The process of you dragging the tool, configuring it, and then putting in place makes that whole workflow repeatable. You just change the front end and rerun it and you have it. But even better, you can schedule workflows on Alteryx, both on-prem and in the cloud, to where, like you said, if every week, every Monday morning, those the data sets change, we can literally tell the workflow to say, hey, look in this space and rerun this workflow. And in that space is the new file each week that comes up. So now you completely automated it, right? Those steps I'll never have to do again. Could I update it, make it better and stronger and faster, whatever? Sure, perfect. But I'll never have to rebuild that analysis. I can build off it, make it better, but I am no longer kind of a slave to that sort of analysis. I can get to do bigger, better, cooler things.
Okay, yeah. Automating things, not having to do work, that's my favorite part of the job.
It's my jam, right? Absolutely.
All right, super. Let's go to some audience questions. So this first question comes from Eugenio saying, how does Alteryx compare to business intelligence platforms, so Power BI, Tableau Prep, things like that?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just getting to those as well so I can just read. So say it one more time. How How is Alteryx different from other platforms?
Yeah, so where does it fit in relative to business intelligence platforms?
Yeah, so those platforms specifically, Power BI and Tableau, their main strength is visualization. That's what they kind of came out of. That's what they do. Sure, they do some basic sort of analysis and data prep, but it's basic. Our whole workflow and our whole landscape in Alteryx is to do that, but to the infinite degree, to where you could do anything you wanted to data. The flip is too, like, we don't do those same charts that you see in Tableau that have all that interactivity. We actually, Alteryx is really good partner with both of those, where you could build the workflow, do all the data munging and data analysis and all the data work with Alteryx, and then output the results into Tableau, Power BI, ClickView, Looker. I mean, we can go on all of those applications that are really good at visualization, and then data. Alteryx really good at the data prep and data cleanup sort of thing. This is actually a principle that I hope many of you capture: is get good at using the tools that are good at what they do. Try not to get in the habit of using a screwdriver to build a house. Like, you would never do that, right? Use the right tool for the job and use them in sync with each other, right? Hopefully that helps you, Eugene.
Okay, so complementary tools rather than competitors,
right.
Then.
Yeah.
Excellent. So next question comes from Sarah. So he says, can you choose which cloud provider you're using for these cloud services?
Absolutely.
So I guess that's AWS or Azure or whatever.
Yeah. So let me just expand on that. You absolutely can. So you can both sit on, have Alteryx Cloud sit on our infrastructure, meaning it's a complete SaaS offering, and you don't have to manage any of that. But what we're finding is many companies need to have, especially when it comes to data, they need to have it into their own environment. And so AWS, GCP, Azure, all supported. And you can also, if you get into conversation about getting Alteryx Cloud, we have a thing called split plane architecture, which is really simple. Oversimplification. It's not simple to say it. To get it in your own private space. So if you want the data not to leave your cloud provider at all, we can handle that as well.
All right, and I presume if you're importing data, you can get that from presumably anywhere.
Yep. Yeah. So where it really pays off, and where I think Saurabh's kind of question hints at, is they want to be able to do the data analysis close to where their other applications are. So, let's hypothesize that they have Snowflake or Databricks or one of those other tools, even any other database, sitting in the cloud. They don't want to be pulling that stuff off the cloud on-prem or moving it to other environments, right? They want to keep it nice and lean.
Yep. All right. Next question is from Aaron, saying,
that's a good one.
I've got the Alteryx Designer Advanced certification. Is it worth stepping up, getting the Alteryx Designer Expert certification? And are the differences between on-prem designer and cloud designer? Actually, before you answer that, I'll say Joshua's coming back in 3 weeks' time for a second webinar, which is going to be specifically on the Alteryx certifications. So we're going to go into this in depth. And it's going to be May 23rd. I think the registration page is going to be up soon. But do you want to give a quick answer to this?
Yeah. So I have a whole lot of passion for the certifications, because they're very valuable. We did two things just for general feedback. Is we both made them easier in certain ways and much harder in other ways. The easier part is the fact that we've come up with these micro credentials, and again, you can go out to the community, go to learn, down to certifications, and you can learn everything about certifications. And these micro credentials kind of lead you up to the core. Core is sort of our beginner fundamental. This really highlights the idea that you could open Alteryx, you can build a workflow, and you understand, navigate your way around. Advanced, which Aaron has, is a hard certification, and it took me, when I first started, it took me a good number of times to even pass it, which is fine, because it's a difficult one to pass. But it showcases that you really, really know Alteryx. Like, you know how to build workflows, but you also know how to think almost like a workflow, right? You get to think of like, hey, how can I make this better? How could I build a predictive model? How could I build a geospatial model? It really tests some things that are not immediately obvious to an Alteryx user. Now, Designer Cloud being relatively newer than on-prem, we're working on getting the certifications updated to there. So for the answer to that part of the cloud side of things is, hold on, we're getting there. We've got initial certifications ready for the cloud, which you can all go out and get, and they're great. But we have more coming in the future. However, I would strongly recommend, Aaron, if you go after expert, because two things, and this is, cut the tape. This is my own Joshua's personal view on this. Two things. There's very few experts in the world. So if we have millions of users, and there's probably 40, maybe 50 experts in the entire world. So it's very coveted, very differentiating sort of certification. It's very freaking hard. Like, I'm being straight. It is a challenge that even our aces struggle to pass sometimes. And our aces are kind of our most elite group of users. So from that point of view, if you really want to stand out, separate yourself, and become kind of that true, what we would consider an expert, go after it. The other thing that I have seen because of my consulting career is this: I can take advanced certified or expert certified folks and drop them into almost any Alteryx situation that is needed, any company that has a need for Alteryx, and they become immediately valuable. Now, what's even more interesting about that is there's almost a sort of a ratio between, if I take a core certified user and an advanced certified, I can almost produce the amount of work and the level and quality of the work 5 times greater with an advanced cert. And with someone who has an expert, it's upwards of 10 or more, meaning for every expert, an expert can almost do the work of 10 core certified Alteryx users, because of the knowledge and because of the ability to not only hit the ground running, but to think of these abstract concepts that are fairly challenging and difficult, and not to get hung up. They know multiple pathways. So, long-winded answer, but this is my sort of value take on the certification. There's a lot of other certifications that, the Amazons, whatever the world, that you almost have to have those to get in the door. Here, it separates you. It turns you into something exceptional, but it also, for companies, they can look at you and say, oh my gosh, this guy, this girl, immediately valuable, right? They immediately worth their weight in gold for this activity or this task. Hopefully that's helpful, Aaron. Always feel free to ping me LinkedIn or wherever, and I'm more than happy to talk more about that.
Yeah, Aaron, it sounds like you've got some work to do, a bit more learning. And for everyone else who's just getting started, it's worth noting that the DataCamp courses do follow the Alteryx curriculum, so they will help you get towards the Alteryx certification. This is the Designer Core certification.
Great resource, absolutely.
All right, super. 2 more questions, then we shall wrap up.
Please.
So this one comes from Billy saying, is there a size limit for the data the platform can handle? So how big a data set are we talking here?
Not that we run into. So, I mean, that's kind of a caveated question. What is too big? Like, is it 1 billion records too big? Like, 1 trillion records too big? Quadrillion? Like, it's one of those things where there isn't really an upper limit in that realm. It's more of, where are you bringing the data from? Are you bringing it across the ocean and bringing it in 200,000 different Excel files that all have, a certain amount, or is it coming from Snowflake, where we're running it directly in Snowflake? So there's not really. The other thing that happens too, just trying to be transparent and honest, like, if you're bringing in, if you're connecting to a data set that, let's just say, is a billion records, you're not going to be working off a billion records. You're working off a sample of that. You build that workflow. And then when you need to run it, depending on how you're running that, if you're running it all using pushdown, which is what I'm insinuating with Snowflake and Databricks and SQL Server, those sort of things, you're pushing the instructions, all those steps that we created, you're pushing those to the database. So the actual work is in the database. So the question becomes, can the database handle it? Most likely the database can handle it, like those sort of things. We're not trying to take over that sort of thing. We're trying to say, hey, if you want to go a couple thousand rows, just bring it in. It's faster just to bring it in the screen. We'll run it through here. If you want to go a couple billion rows, let's work with the technologies that you have to make that happen. Hopefully, Billy, that's answers the question. Again, there's a lot of nuance and all that stuff, so that we could go down more than happy to.
So it sounds like in that case, once you get into big data, then Alteryx would primarily be used to like stop you having to write SQL, but the database is the computation.
Okay. Yeah, but my boss likes to use this, and I've brutally stole this idea from him. But Alteryx becomes like this window into all of your data infrastructure. So we can literally look into the Snowflake databases of the sorts and all across the board, even into the cloud databases, Redshift and BigQuery and all those things, and help use those sources much easier. Don't expect that you have to have a degree or advanced skills in Python or SQL. We can help you simplify that a lot easier.
All right, excellent. And last question, Kings asks, basically, is Alteryx free? Is there a free version available? Can you just talk us through pricing?
Yeah. So there's some nuance there. So there is no product called Alteryx Lab. There is, you have free trials for two things. You can get free trial for cloud, which is what you got today, and you can use that up. I think it's 14 days now that it's been changing. That'll allow you to use it. There's nothing to download because it's in the cloud. But we do have on-prem, which is a desktop application that works on Windows. You can download that, or you can run it in a Windows VM. That's kind of what I do because I'm on Mac. And that has a free trial as well. And the pricing and everything you can get from the website from putting a query in. So
all right.
Hopefully that does it.
Okay, free for 14 days. Otherwise, I guess you're changing your email address and losing your previous work. All right, so thank you for that, Josh. That was really informative, and hope to see you again in 3 weeks.
Absolutely, yeah. That Aaron's point is well made. You can do the independent learner license.
Wonderful. All right. So thank you again. Thank you to Reese for moderating. Thank you to everyone who asked a question. Thank you to everyone who showed up today. I'll see you all again in future webinars.